Ever feel like you're stuck using the same old tools from your mental toolbox?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Even when they don't quite fit the job. You know what I mean?
It's so easy to just fall back on what's familiar.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But what if we could, upgrade that toolbox?
Interesting.
Find some new tools, new ways of thinking.
I like that.
That's what we're diving into today.
Okay.
Some really unconventional thinking models
I'm intrigued.
that could help us unlock some seriously innovative solutions.
So we're talking about more than just thinking differently.
Yeah. Thinking better.
Okay. Love it.
And get this, these models are inspired by some pretty unexpected sources.
Like what?
We're talking mosquitoes.
Mosquitoes.
Empty teacups.
Okay, now I'm really curious.
All sorts of stuff.
I'm ready.
All right, let's kick things off with this mosquito thinking thing.
Okay.
I have to admit, when I first heard about this one, I was like, mosquitoes? Really?
Yeah, I can see that.
But it turns out these little guys have a lot to teach us.
Okay. I'm listening.
So think about a mosquito in a rainstorm for a second.
Okay.
It doesn't try to fight against the raindrops, right?
No.
No way. It's way too small.
Way too small.
It's got to be more adaptable.
So what does it do?
It uses the wind and rain to its advantage.
Interesting.
Bobbing and weaving, finding a new path.
So instead of being rigid,
Right.
you got to be flexible to adjust to the changes.
Exactly. And that's something we can all use a little more of.
Especially in today's world.
Constantly changing so fast.
New technologies, everything's moving a mile a minute.
And you know what happens to those who can't adapt?
What?
They get left behind.
True.
But those who could be like the mosquito, flexible, agile, using change to their advantage.
They're the ones who thrive?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've talked about adapting to change, but what about those challenges where the answer isn't so obvious?
Oh, I know what you mean.
It's like staring at a puzzle and you just can't see the solution.
Frustrating.
That's where bullet hole thinking comes in.
Bullet hole thinking. Okay.
And to illustrate this, we're going back in time.
Oh, how far back are we talking?
World War II.
Wow. Okay.
Mathematicians, they had this really important task.
What was that?
They needed to figure out
Okay.
the best way to reinforce bombers,
To make them safer.
to increase their chances of,
Survival.
survival. Yeah.
So what did they do?
Well, at first glance, the answer seemed pretty obvious.
Let me guess. Reinforce the areas with the most bullet holes.
Exactly.
Seems logical, right?
Makes sense, right. But here's the thing.
What?
They were only looking at the planes that made it back.
Oh, I see.
The ones that didn't survive.
Right.
They were likely shot in different places.
The critical spots that weren't so obvious.
Yeah, the data was skewed.
Fascinating.
So they shifted their focus
Okay.
and started looking at those areas with fewer bullet holes.
To find the hidden vulnerabilities.
Yeah, the blind spots.
Wow.
And by doing that, they were able to reinforce those areas.
And save lives.
Exactly. It's a powerful reminder that sometimes we need to look beyond the obvious.
Challenge our assumptions.
Yes, and look for what's missing.
Not just what's right in front of us.
Exactly.
I like that.
Okay, so speaking of challenging assumptions, get ready for this.
Okay.
Returning books thinking.
Returning books thinking. What in the world is that?
Okay, so picture this, the British Library.
Okay.
They had to move millions of books.
Millions.
Millions to a new location.
Oh my gosh, that sounds like a logistical nightmare.
Right, a recipe for disaster.
So how did they pull it off?
Okay, so you would think they hired a massive team, spent a ton of money on logistics,
Yeah, that would make sense.
but instead they did something completely unexpected.
Okay, what did they do?
They opened the library doors and asked the patrons to return the books to the new location themselves.
Wow, are you serious? That's brilliant. Talk
Yeah.
about thinking outside the box.
And the craziest part, it worked.
No way.
It was incredibly efficient and cost-effective.
Who would have thought?
And that's the beauty of this returning books thinking.
What's the key takeaway?
That sometimes the most creative solutions
Yeah.
are staring us right in the face.
We just need to be open to them.
Exactly.
And it turns out those ants were essential.
Essential.
Yeah, they were the colony's secret weapon.
Okay, now I'm really interested.
When the colony's usual food source ran out, guess who knew where to find food?
The lazy ants.
The lazy ants. They had been scouting out new territory all along.
So they weren't just being lazy.
Nope.
They were actually being strategic.
Exactly. They were keeping their options open,
Yeah.
not just blindly following everyone else.
So what's the lesson here? Embrace a little laziness.
Not quite laziness, but that willingness to explore, to wander, to not be constantly on,
To step back from the daily grind.
Yes. Sometimes the best ideas come to us when we're not actively searching for them.
When we let our minds wander a little?
Precisely.
It's like that saying, you can't see the forest for the trees.
Exactly. Sometimes you need a fresh perspective, a change of scenery to see things clearly.
To clear your head.
And speaking of clearing your head,
Ooh, I know what's coming.
empty cup thinking.
The teacup story.
You know it. The master pouring tea into the student's already full cup.
And the tea spills everywhere.
What's the lesson? To learn something new.
We have to be willing to empty our cups.
Let go of our preconceived notions.
Our old ways of thinking.
Make space for new knowledge.
It's so easy to get stuck in our ways,
Oh, absolutely.
thinking we have all the answers.
When really we're just clinging to outdated beliefs.
And that's the opposite of growth.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We need to approach life with a little humility.
Acknowledge that we don't know everything.
There's always more to learn.
Like that actor Chen Doming.
How about him?
Super successful, but still committed to continuous learning, always seeking out new knowledge.
Now that's inspiring.
Right. Proof that learning is a lifelong journey.
Absolutely. Speaking of journeys,
Ooh, another model.
there's this concept of field thinking.
Field thinking.
Okay. It's about understanding the environment we're operating in.
So our surroundings.
More than just our physical surroundings.
Okay, then what else?
It's about how we perceive our environment.
What do you mean?
Okay, imagine this. A man riding his horse across a frozen lake.
Across a frozen lake. Sounds risky.
It was, but here's the thing. He didn't know how dangerous it was.
He didn't.
Nope. Thought it was just a normal field.
Wow.
And you know what? He survived.
Because he didn't know any better.
Exactly.
Right.
Had he known the ice was thin, his fear might have paralyzed him.
So his perception or lack thereof literally saved his life.
Precisely.
Wow, that's
It
wild.
shows the power of our beliefs, you know,
How they can either limit us.
or empower us.
I like that.
Sometimes we're our own worst enemies.
Thinking we can't when we actually can't.
Exactly. And sometimes achieving success requires knowing when to walk away.
To cut your losses.
Exactly.
That's tough.
It is, but it's crucial. Stop loss thinking.
Okay, stop loss thinking. Give me an example.
Imagine a woman in a relationship with a gambler.
Okay.
She's unhappy. He's out of control.
Tough situation.
She has to decide stay and potentially suffer more.
Or walk away.
Exactly.
So what does she do?
She chooses herself. She walks away.
She cuts her losses.
And potentially saves herself from more heartache down the line.
That takes strength.
It does. Knowing when to walk away is just as important as knowing when to persevere.
And speaking of perseverance.
Pit-filling thinking.
Okay, what's that all about?
Being a proactive problem solver.
Instead of just complaining about problems.
Exactly. Taking ownership. Finding solutions.
Like that CEO Peng Lei.
With her pit-filling ability. Love that.
Instead of blaming others,
She empowers her team to tackle problems head-on.
be the solution, not the problem, right?
Precisely. Or think about that author, Zuji.
What did he do?
Discovered a security flaw on a website.
Oh no, security flaws are never good.
Instead of ignoring it,
He did the right thing right.
he took it upon himself to find a solution.
Now that's what I call pit-filling thinking.
Taking initiative, being resourceful, taking responsibility.
All essential qualities.
And you know what often goes hand in hand with problem solving?
What's that?
Recognizing our strengths.
Okay. I like where this is going.
Time for bucket thinking.
Bucket thinking. Okay, I like it.
It's about focusing on what we're good at, you know?
Instead of dwelling on our weaknesses.
Exactly. We all have unique talents,
Right.
things that come naturally to us.
And we should embrace those.
Exactly. Play to your strengths, right?
Find a path that lets us shine.
Like that scientist Otto Wallach.
What about him?
Struggled in a bunch of fields early on.
Oh no.
But then he found chemistry. He won a Nobel Prize.
Wow, so he found his niche.
Exactly. Sometimes we just need to find the right fit, you know?
It's like finding the right tool for the job.
I like that brings us back to that toolbox we were talking about.
Right. We've added all these new tools today. Mosquito thinking, bullet hole thinking, empty cup thinking.
Lazy ant thinking. Don't forget that one.
Oh yeah, how could I forget? That one's my favorite.
It's a good one.
So we've got all these new tools, but now the question is,
How do we use them?
exactly, which one resonates with you?
Which one are you going to put to use this week?
Maybe it's time to embrace a little mosquito thinking. Be more adaptable.
Or maybe you need to channel your inner lazy ant, take a step back to gain some clarity.
The possibilities are endless.
The important thing is to remember
What's that?
that the way we think shapes our reality.
So true.
If we want to change our lives, we need to change our thinking.
Upgrade our mental toolboxes.
Exactly. And these models, these thinking tools, they give us the power to do just that.
To become more creative, more adaptable, more successful.
And ultimately more fulfilled.
I love that. Well said. That's a wrap, folks.